This is an example problem that I pulled directly from your book on page 247, and this is a really important one to talk about just because it has something a little bit unique happening with it. It says in the diagram segment QS, which is right here, segment QS and segment RP pass through the center M of the circle. What can you conclude about triangle MRS? So here's MRS and triangle MPQ, which is right here. All right, so the one thing we need to be okay with on this one that's a little bit different that we haven't really dealt with yet is that if you're dealing with a circle, remember when you first learned about circles, you have a radius right here with segment MP, you have a radius here with segment MQ, MS is a radius, and MR is a radius. And one thing that's neat about a circle is that the distance from the center to a point on the circle is always the same. So in other words, all radii of a circle are congruent. And radii is the plural form of radius. All radii of a circle are congruent. So specifically, we know that MS and MQ are congruent to each other because those are radii of a circle. And we also know that MP and RM are congruent to each other. And I didn't write it this way, but actually all four of these segments are congruent to each other. So I would have been fine with even just marking RM and MP with this one little green tick mark showing that all four of them are congruent. But just for the sake of not wanting to confuse anyone, I marked these up differently. But I have two pairs of congruent sides here. So in other words, these are isosceles triangles in here because the MQ and the MP would be congruent and the MR and the MS are congruent. And notice that when I listed these congruencies, I pulled my corresponding sides from my triangles. And if you remember when I was talking to you about the order of the letters, MS is my first and third letter here. So I know that corresponds with my first and third letter over here with MQ. So that's why I line those two up. And then secondly, MP, my first and second letter right here, is going to correspond with MR, my first and second letter on this triangle. So that's how I line those up. Now, in order to conclude that these triangles are congruent, I need three congruencies. And my last congruency is, of course, going to come from the fact that we have vertical angles right here. So I know that angle PMQ is definitely congruent to angle RMS. And I know that's true by the vertical angles congruence theorem. And notice those angles are my included angles in both of those triangles. So this angle is between my two marked sides over here with triangle MRS, and this angle is my included angle in my triangle MPQ. So I have everything I need, so I can conclude at the end here that triangle MRS is definitely congruent to triangle MPQ. And once again, notice, with MRS, I'm going in this order. I'm going along the pink side to my unmarked side, and MPQ, I'm going along the pink side to my unmarked side. So triangle MRS is congruent to triangle MPQ by the side angle side congruence theorem. And that's my conclusion, and I'm all done.